have for the week, which is we're going to dissect Mourinho's management style. And I'll let Shrikar do like a little introduction.
Yeah, so Mourinho, very controversial figure in recent times, especially. So just a brief history about Mourinho himself, the man, the myth, the legend. He started his career off at Benfica actually, where he only lasted for 9 games. But this spell was pretty successful for him, and he did get a lot of other offers. But then the man continued his Portuguese travels, went to Porto in 2002. He won the league there, I think. And then
I think.
yeah, I think. And
Yeah,
he also won the he
he
won the
did.
Champions League there at Porto, so that was a really successful time. Not a lot of people expected Porto, Portuguese side to win the Champions League, which proved his credentials in the big leagues. Then came the offer from Chelsea in 2004, where he got his nickname, the Special One, as we all know. And from there, we know the story. Chelsea, he had back-to-back Premier League titles, very successful period under the old guard of Chelsea with Lampard, Drogba, Terry. And then he moved on to Madrid, where I don't know if we could classify his Madrid spell as successful, but he did win the league, I think, once there, beating a very informed Barcelona side, which was under Pep. So there were very interesting battles there for him. And then moved back to Chelsea, won the league again, and now he's ended up at United. So that's the man's story, his lifetime so far. But very controversial at every place he's been to. Right, Ange? I don't really recall a single instance in recent memory where he hasn't proved to be a controversial figure.
Okay. That brings us to like his current situation at Man United, where he is having a very, very rough time to say the least. And there's so
What do you
many
think is the
reasons.
inherent issue with Mourinho? Like, he got sacked from Chelsea. I think that's where the problems really started.
Yeah, like if you want to just be general, you could say it's his third season, and third seasons with Mourinho always end like this. But I want to talk about a little bit about like his actual style of management
Mm-hmm.
and what like his history of management has entailed and what players have said about him. So before we do that, though, let's talk about his current situation at United, where he's having a,
A torrid time,
a
a very
really
rough time.
it's gotten so deep and so murky that there's not like one or two or three reasons for it. It feels like everything surrounding the club and surrounding Mourinho right now is at like a low. So
Mm-hmm.
his relationship with players seems to be terrible. His relationship with the board seems to be terrible. His like his perceived quality of the squad seems to be bad. He thinks that the current generation of players are all just mentally weak. Uh,
Mm.
like it seems like nothing is going right for him, and uh, one thing that illustrates this is he completely publicly went in the media yesterday, or not yesterday, a few days ago, and said that the entire generation of players that includes Shaw, Martial, Lingard, and Rashford, I think. He mentioned the names. He said that they're all mentally unable to compete when I came in. Like they were all mentally unable to compete,
Mm-hmm.
and it's taken them like 2 seasons to for me to. He didn't say that, but he said when I came in they were unable to compete, and saying
Right.
that publicly in the media, like I don't know what
Yeah.
good that can do. Like that's just the way I can say it, but I don't know what good that can do. Like
He
what's
literally
that gonna
said that
do?
his players would be better off staying at home and watching Manchester United on television if they cannot handle the pressure of playing at Old Trafford.
And comments like that really make you think that he's a toxic manager. And that's what I thought. Like the entire time I've known Mourinho as a manager, I've always thought he's a
Mm-hmm.
toxic manager. And comments
Mm-hmm.
like that reinforce my belief. But if you actually go listen to what players say about Mourinho, it's like a completely different story, which is
It's
so
very
interesting.
interesting. There's certain players, certain types of players that he really gravitates towards in a
Yeah.
dressing room. And then oftentimes it's maybe one or two, but then the rest of the dressing room is completely ignored.
I don't know about that though. Like, there's many players who have come out and said that he's, like, no doubt, like, not even a question, the best manager they've ever had. Like, not even a question. Like, by far, too. And there's also players who've worked under both Guardiola and Mourinho who've said that still. And, like, I'll read out, like, a couple of quotes after I find them. I had them written down. But, like, you can talk, like, a little bit more to that.
I recall this one interview that I saw with Terry and Gerrard, and I recall this very, like, one incident where Terry was injured in 2005, 2006, and he was lying on the injury table inside the dressing room, and most players, when the manager walks by, most managers would ask the player how he's feeling, when's the return time, but Mourinho did none of that apparently. He literally walked past Terry, gave him a cold stare, and literally said nothing to him. And that's one incident that stuck with Terry for some reason. And Terry liked that because it gave him motivation to prove to the boss that he wasn't, going to be out for that long. He could take the tough love. And Gerrard, those types of old school players really admired Mourinho's, sort of tough love. Maybe perhaps because they weren't babied into anything. If you look at players right now, the perception from the outside is that these types of players are not as mentally strong, like Jose says too.
That's like his whole thing. He keeps coming back to the fact that players today are too pampered, they're too mentally weak, they can't handle pressure, and he keeps saying that in the press conferences after games too. He said they couldn't handle the pressure. So what I think is, like, here's like my sort of theory about what Mourinho works best with. I think he works best with players who are very tough and very thick-skinned. And I feel like those types of players don't exist as much anymore as they used to, which is why I think his management style isn't working with Man United.
Or even recently, for that matter, not just United.
Well, it still kind of worked with Chelsea when he was last at Chelsea. For the first 2 seasons, he was really successful. And I think that's still because he had those leaders at the club. He still
Terry
had
was still
John
captain.
Terry.
Yeah.
And he still had, like, many leaders. And I think he still, like, re-signed Drogba for, like, a year. That he was a huge influence in the dressing room.
Yeah.
But, like, if you look at the current, like, group of players at United, there's no one like that anymore. And I think that kind of breed of player...
Maybe Ashley Young, but even him, not really.
I don't see it, honestly.
De Gea, maybe... But he's not an outfield player, so you can't really...
Like, his way of managing is pretty much... It's the opposite of what most managers do. He tells players internally that they're the best players in the world. And externally to the media, he goes out and he criticizes them. Which is, like, it makes no sense. It's the opposite of what most managers do. But it's...
And
it'd
be confusing for me as a player itself. Like, if I'd rather take the criticism up front in the dressing room and then let the manager, maybe praise me outside. Like, I wouldn't mind that, right?
Exactly. But he likes to play this game where... Maybe a game is a wrong word.
His famous mind games.
His famous mind games. But it's like his management style where it's really, really tough love. So he'll like love you on the inside and, give you like big bear hugs inside the dressing room, but he won't show that in the public. And like we were talking about this last week in like the chat. It's like a military style sort of love, where you sort of you create like this really, really intense bond inside the team, but it's still really harsh. And if you don't meet the standards, you're ostracized, and there's no shortcuts. And I feel like players were made for that back then, but maybe they're not made for that like anymore. Like 2018, like who the fuck cares? Like if he's mean to you, like you go complain to the boss. Like
I mean, you release a freaking diss track like Depay did.
Oh my god.
Like when you're coming,
track, though.
It wasn't even diss track, but it was like when you have players doing that in the modern like era, like you would never think Terry, Gerrard, Lampard would ever think of releasing a song like that. That's not even like part of their structure. But Griezmann had a freaking show announcing his transfer.
yeah, like what the fuck is that, man?
Yeah, like times have changed, and I don't think Mourinho has adapted.
Like here's a quote from Lampard that kind of sums up what many players have like talked about Mourinho, which is interesting because like I thought he was toxic, but reading stuff like this kind of changes my mind. So he said, "For me, Jose was the best. He was the first manager I came across to have a particular way. He knew whether a player needed a leg up or a rollicking, and he formed a spirit among the team that was formidable. We didn't have a group mentality to win the league, but he brought that in. And we've seen the same thing happening for him at Inter and with his Real Madrid team." Frank Lampard. And I have so many quotes like this from players. I have them from Ibrahimovic, where he said the following year he left Inter for Real Madrid, and at the same time, him and Materazzi parted ways. Materazzi is about the world's toughest defender, but as he hugged Mourinho, he began to cry. And I can understand him in a way, because Mourinho arouses feelings in people. Ibrahimovic said that. And just listening to stuff like that is super interesting because on the outside
it's almost like a split personality with like different players. It's,
yeah.
Like you hear one thing and then you hear this other polarizing opposite from other players.
I haven't actually heard a polarizing opposite from like players, except players who have really, really big personalities, like Ramos. You know?
Yeah.
There is one exception. If Mourinho's on your side, then he can be the best manager you've ever had. If he's not on your side, he can be like your worst enemy. And
but isn't it a manager's job to bring everyone onto your side?
Exactly. But I can see why that management style worked. And I can also see why that doesn't work anymore, you know? Like, interesting comments were made by, like, Iniesta this week. I don't know if you've seen them, Shrikar.
The one where he talks about him being depressed?
No, when he talks about Mourinho.
Oh, no, I haven't heard. What did he say?
So he said that Mourinho, when he came into Real Madrid, the Clásico between Barca and Real Madrid was all obviously very, very intense. Like, it was like the most intense derby they ever participated in. But after Mourinho came in, he introduced like a hatred among the players that wasn't there before. And that really disrupted like the Spanish national team's international games too. Because
at that point in time, it was essentially just Madrid and Barca players.
Yeah. And he said that Mourinho inspired like a hatred of Barca players from the Real Madrid players. And like that's just his style of management. He brings everyone together in like this really strong knit
cult-like fashion.
In like cult-like to like treat the other person as like the enemy, which is exactly how like army groups work.
And he treats the press in the same way too.
Exactly. He's like, everyone's against us, so we have to go and beat everyone. And like I see why that doesn't work anymore in today's world.
Yeah.
So
what do you think needs to change at United then? Does he need to go? Giggs comes in for 6 months?
I think he needs to go, but I think he's not the only problem. I think the board needs to hire a director of football. I think they need to have like a transfer strategy because they don't.
You know who I think would have done really well at United? Ranieri.
Maybe. I don't know. I don't know about his experience with managing big players, so I don't know.
Dude, watch Wenger come into United. Oh my god.
No, dude, there's no chance of that happening.
Because
come back to the Premier League.
I've heard talks that Wenger might take over at Bayern in the summer.
Yeah, that could happen. But he's not coming back to the PL if he's not going to Arsenal.
Yo, watch it happen.
It's not gonna happen. Put a £5 on it though.
Just for fun, just in case.
Yeah.
But I think time's running down for him at United. Something needs to change quickly, or else he will be a man without a job.
I think he should be. I just don't think there's any way for this to turn around because there's so many relationships already broken. I don't think you can come back from this.
The infamous third year repeats itself once again. A prophecy for the times.
Sir. And I think that also means time is running out for us because it's 45 minutes now. Yeah. If you guys enjoyed that, let us know.
And like we said before, we'd be introducing more fun topics, fun, little segments into our podcast coming next week once Tristan's back,
Yeah.
which will, spice things up, add more entertainment value to your listening experience. So stay tuned. And, we're on all different platforms: Spotify, Anchor, Google Play Music, iTunes, and of course YouTube. So do check us out there and spread the word if you like it. Tell your friends to subscribe, and give us a like, please.
Give us a sub, give us a like, and give us a comment if you like our stuff. If you don't like our stuff, give us a comment. Let us know what
If you hate T-Series, give us a sub. I don't mind.
Wait, I thought you're on T-Series' side. What?
Nah, bro. Nah. Cut this out. Cut this out. Nah. We'll see you next week, guys. I am on. Yes.
Bye.
I'm on. Bye.